The most uncomfortable or challenging circumstances of our life are what we want to avoid or overlook.
I'm here to tell you that even in those moments when life brings you down to your knees, you have to rise through it and move forward.
I was handcuffed and shackled with the waist chain.
I felt debilitated by uncertainty. I was terrified of losing my big client. But had I just had the courage to walk away in the face of uncertainty, my life could have been very different. There is discomfort in not knowing what's coming next. Most of us think we have to rise above a challenge. But the truth is, we have to rise through it. To grow, to change, to learn from the pain, and then take courageous action.
Self-compassion, enlightenment, courage, conviction, and empathy. These are the transformational shifts leaders experience when they engage with my guest today, Rashmi Airan, who is an ex-felon, attorney, keynote speaker, and CEO. As a lawyer having emerged from federal prison, Rashmi knows what it takes to rise through adversity, creating a culture of courage and vulnerability. Join me in a powerful discussion that will help you reframe your identity and turn fear into action. This is E3. Engage and empower with empathy. Welcome to the show, Rashmi. It's really nice to have you here. I've been really excited for this conversation. How are you doing?
Oh God, same. I'm so excited to talk to you. I'm doing great. Just back from an international trip, so refreshed.
That's great. Well, I know you spent some time in India, and that's where you're originally from. So we can certainly talk about your cultural origins, and that's just one aspect of how diverse you are as a person. I was actually trying to do some research for this podcast, and I went onto your website and I was browsing the About Me section, and I didn't even know where to start. You're an Ivy League educated attorney, Wall Street investment banker, serial entrepreneur, college professor, trained vocalist. That one threw me off. I was like, this is super cool. Convicted felon, and a globally recognized transformation expert. So basically you do everything. You have an incredible background. You've had an incredible life experience. I don't even know where to start. Where do you want to start?
Well, it's interesting because you read all those things out and I look back at my life and go, oh, wow, I actually have done all of these things. I think that we all have these moments in life where we just keep doing the next thing, right? Whatever the universe puts in front of us. I really believe that. And of course, my life journey has taken me through this really difficult experience. And ex-felon is not something I would have ever thought would show up on, any list related to me. And having gone through that experience and has completely shifted, I would say, my entire mission and purpose in life, but also how I see myself as a human being, and then how I see others, how I relate to others. I feel like all of our life experiences lead us to exactly where we're supposed to be today. And so that for me has been the biggest lesson in learning from like my life experiences. But hearing you read them all out, it kind of reminds me of like all these moments in my life and people that I was surrounded by. So yeah, I appreciate that.
Well, I mean, you're talking about going through kind of letting life carve out its journey for you and just taking what you get and working with it. With this, all this diversity of functions and life experience, like what did that life journey look like for you? And what did your decision-making process look like? Like, how much did you kind of carve that path versus the universe just kind of presented things to you and you just dealt with it?
Well, I think it's a really good question. I would say as a kid, I absolutely believed that I was going to create a plan for my life. And if I just follow my plan, I will achieve success. I will be loved because of those achievements. and have worth and value in this world. I also believed that if I followed this plan, I would never have to face difficult times. I would never have to face a struggle if I just do the right thing, if I'm the good girl, if I achieve what I'm supposed to achieve. Because I had watched my grandparents and my parents struggle through major things in their lives, whether it's business struggle, financial struggle, legal struggles. And I was so, I don't know if I want to use the word scared, but I certainly was intent on not having to struggle. I thought at the age of 18, watching my parents lose everything when the market crashed, the real estate market crashed, we lost our home to foreclosure. They had to file bankruptcy. I'm a senior in high school, and we move out of this like incredible house in the premier neighborhood in Miami on the ocean to a small rental a block from my high school. And I remember thinking then, March of my senior year in high school, I'm going to figure out how to avoid this. Like, I'm not going to struggle. I just have to follow my plan. So I think it's interesting because back when I was a kid, I certainly did not believe that the universe had some sort of mission for me. I didn't understand that spiritually. I absolutely thought I was in control of every aspect of my life. And so I very much was the girl who never colored outside the lines, who was on that straight and narrow. I was definitely the good girl, the nerd, everything from alcohol to drugs to sex, right? Like none of that was in my life because I thought it can't be if I'm going to do the right thing. By all accounts, I did all of those things. I went to UNC Chapel Hill. I graduated top of my class. I won all the awards. I got inducted into all the honorary societies. Then I went to Wall Street and worked at a big investment bank. Then I went to Columbia Law School. And again, I won all the awards and did very, very well. So by all accounts, I'm succeeding, right? Like I've achieved what I thought would define me and would help me land at the pinnacle of what I'm supposed to land on as an adult. But see, life doesn't work that way because what I have learned is that no matter how hard or no matter how much we believe we can avoid hard times, struggle, change, the truth is that it's not if, it's when. We will all struggle. It's like the universal truth. And so that was really when I began to go through this legal battle with the government and then ultimately owned up to what I did and took accountability and pled guilty and then ended up serving time in prison. That entire journey for me helped me understand first that the universe always has our best interest in heart. And so imagine I'm being indicted for something and I'm thinking, why aren't 500 other attorneys in Miami being indicted for the same thing? And I finally came to this peace and spiritual peace of mind that, you know what? I'm going through this because I'm supposed to learn something from this really difficult moment in my life. And it doesn't matter what other people have done. This is my journey in my life spiritually. And so once I owned that this was happening for me, it's not happening to me, it's happening for me, I began to see everything through a new lens. There was a long process on how this happened. Like I called 200 people in my life and told them what happened and asked them to help me, believing that on every call they would hang up on me. I totally believed that everybody loved me for my achievements, not because of me. And so this process of calling people, admitting that I had made a mistake, admitting that I had failed, basically, helped me understand that people love me for me. And that was a big awakening for me. Just the recognition that people are very forgiving of our humanity when we let them, when we give them the opportunity to walk in that space with us. So I walked through shame alongside hundreds of people in my community and all over the country and world. And I gave people the opportunity to really judge me and then still love me. So that journey for me has been really life-changing in terms of how I see myself, how I see others, how I have learned not to judge others as well. And I had to own up to the fact that I absolutely was passing judgment on people. Certainly when I went to prison, I was passing judgment on these women I was about to go be in prison with. And then having spent time in prison with basically sisters, I realized they're just like me. We're just drops from the same ocean. So when you ask me, is the universe always in charge or how do we figure out that plan? I think it's both. I think we have an obligation to do the best we can, to design for ourselves an idea of how we would like our lives to go or what we would like the next 5 years to look like. And we do the best we can with the understanding that when things go differently or awry, it's not because we've done something not according to plan or awry. It's more that the universe actually wants us to go in this detour or off on this brand to learn a lesson. Because when things happen in our lives, I really believe it's because we're supposed to learn something from those moments, whether it's a good or a bad experience. Bad meaning hard or difficult, uncomfortable, because that's the only way we evolve.
Yeah, and I was intrigued by the comment you made about change being done to you versus for you. Because I've actually spent time leading people through change, and in my previous corporate roles, there's always a difference in mindset when people feel like change is being done to them versus when change is being done for them.
Yes.
So it's interesting that that was the dialogue that you created in your mind.
To be fair, it was an uncle that said it to me.
Hmm.
Early on, one of the things we did as a family was right after I got indicted is we called our Indian community over to the house, like our closest family friends. I believe that I had disgraced my parents so much that they were all going to shun and leave us. And instead, every single person loved on us, hugged us, told us they were there for us. But this one uncle said, Beti, which in Hindi means daughter, one day you'll realize this is not happening to you, it's happening for you. And that learning for me, because so that was April 2014, that comment that this uncle made to me, which I had never heard before. Since then, I know that other people have said this line, but since I had never heard it, I attributed it to my uncle and how it affected me, because it's still like it's sat in the back of my head. And it took probably 4 months until when I finally pled guilty for me to embrace that concept and recognize that, oh, this is happening for me. This is not something I'm going to fight. I'm going through this because I'm supposed to learn something from it. It wasn't an automatic, I think we're all in this sort of this life-changing process, right? We're always sort of growing and figuring things out.
I'm just wondering what went through your mind when you were in prison? When you mentioned being together with sisters, what was that experience like, and how did you support each other?
So my time in prison, I was very intentional about first how I spent my days. Look, I think there are a lot of women in prison who don't have the privileges that I have. And that means family coming to visit me, family that I can call every day or email, family that would put money into my commissary account every 2 weeks so that I could buy things from commissary, or so that I could send emails, or so that I could make phone calls, right? So I absolutely recognize that I'm privileged in this respect. Having said that, there's a very large majority of women in prison that are incredibly, I would say, depressed and negative and bitter about sort of what's happened because they've gone through these very hard life moments. Many of them are there not because of something they did, but because something their spouse did, or somebody they knew, family member, and they just got wrapped up in the conspiracy because they were present, let's say, or had some tangential knowledge. This I saw a lot in drug crimes. So that was really hard to like be around. But my time in prison, I chose to see it as an opportunity for me to really self-reflect and grow. Again, I was only there. I knew I was only going to be there maximum a year, so that's a huge privilege and blessing because I had a light at the end of the tunnel, and I knew that. And so I took every day as an opportunity to read, to work. So I would get up in the morning and send an email to my children. Actually, the first thing I would do is I would write my gratitude journal. I used to sleep on the top bunk, and there was a ledge right next to my top bunk, and I used to keep a gratitude journal like right on the ledge. So I would wake up. I had a Timex watch that I bought from commissary, and I would like set the alarm and I'd hang it on the bedpost. So the alarm would go off. I'd wake up. I'd turn my nightlight on, another clip-on nightlight that I had also bought in commissary. And the first thing I would do is pull over my gratitude journal and I'd write in my gratitude journal. And the process of finding gratitude while I was away from my children in prison was very much an evolution for me, because I've never been the victim. I've always like understood that there's a purpose here, but actually taking time to find gratitude every single morning and then every single night, because it was the last thing I would do before I went to sleep, was very, not just healing, but also it kept me in the right mindset. So I would write in my gratitude journal, then I'd like make my bed, slide off bunk bed, get ready, send my kids an email, and then go out and start working out. Working out meant there was this like makeshift track, and I'd run around the track for, I don't know, hours. And then we all had jobs. So my first job in prison was I was the trash girl, and every night I had to take the trash out, uh, which meant there were 4 housing units, and my job was to take the huge bins that were full of all the trash from the day and wheel both of those bins to the back of the prison complex. It's 9 o'clock at night, 8:45, dark. I had gloves, thank God. And then one by one, I had to take the bags and put them in the trash compactor, and then push the button. And sometimes those bags would bust, and I would have to pick up the garbage and put it in. It was very humbling. So I did that for about a month. And then there was a position that opened up in education. And so I applied to be a teacher. So then I was a math teacher, and I taught math and English in the morning and Spanish in the afternoon. So I would do that in between. I'd eat and I'd read. And in the afternoons, I'd spend some time with my couple friends that I had met. We'd play board games, and we'd read newspaper or magazines that were there, and watch TV, go for a walk. So my days were very intentionally organized so that I had time to read and time to reflect. I spent a lot of time writing letters and emails to people. I sent a quote of the day every day to my family and friends. So it was like a combination of very intentional connecting with the outside world, but also self-reflecting and finding space to grow from within.
That's an incredible experience. As you emerged from that experience, what was it like transitioning back into the world? Because I know when you and I talked, you basically said everything was taken from you. You basically had to start over again. What did that process look like, and how were you feeling mentally at that time?
Well, I would say that when I came home, the first thing that happened was I just wanted to spend time with my kids and decompress and debrief with my close friends, catch up on what I had missed. And as I began to think about, like, okay, what am I going to do now? First of all, being an ex-felon is really hard, right? It's very limiting. And I didn't know what, but I did know that I wanted to share my story. I did not know what that was going to look like. I did not know what my message was. I emailed the head of the criminal law section from Columbia Law School. And, funny enough, I had never taken any of his classes. I took like the one mandatory criminal law class that you're required to take in law school, but I had never taken anything else. And once I explained who I am and what happened, he invited me to come up and speak to his class. So I went up to go speak to his class. That was like the beginning of at least people getting to know that this was something I could talk about. I still had no idea what my message was. I just was like sharing what happened, the story. He then told somebody at the New York City Bar Association, and then Fordham Law School, and then NYU Law School. So like word slowly began to spread. And that was how I kind of started on this journey. Eventually I got asked to do a TEDx talk. So then I had to really figure out a message. I started in the ethics and compliance space. The concept was about ethical vigilance. I honestly did that for like 6 years or so, 7 years. And I know that I got tons of traction. I was able to impact a lot of people with a decision-making process that I had created, and important things that I believe that people don't always think about, like accountability and professional skepticism, and what are the trust factors and why do we attribute trust to people. So like there was various things I would talk about. About 18 months ago, I realized, I can be an ethics speaker. I can always do that talk. But I felt a bigger calling. There's a bigger, higher purpose for why I went through this. And I don't think it's just talking about ethics. So I began to work with a coach and deconstruct it. I really began to dig deeper and peel off more and more layers, which was very healing. And as I did that, I realized my entire life has been an exploration in rising through really difficult moments. And I've watched my parents rise through those difficult moments. Along the way, I also, in 2019, my sister passed away. And she had suffered from mental health issues for many, many, many years. As I started to think about, what's really the message? What are all of us individuals, leaders, parents, what are we all facing, whether we're at home or at work in our communities every single day? And that was how I began to really hone in on the RISE process. And Rashmi means the rays of the morning sun. So so it basically means the sunrise. And it was almost like it was always there. I just had to find it. I had to just I had to drop into it. I know that this is my mission and it's my purpose, and it feels so aligned with where I'm at this point.
That's such a beautiful story, how you kind of came to this. It took your journey for you to actually find this purpose. So it's not like you woke up one day and it was just this self-discovery aha moment. You had to go through this journey. Like you said from the very beginning of our conversation, that it took that journey to get you where you are today.
It's also interesting because yesterday I gave a talk at my alma mater at UNC Chapel Hill for the law school specifically. And Joe Capone, who's my prosecutor who prosecuted me in 2014, he and I have become really great friends over the last 5 years and 6 years actually. And he and I now speak together. So we were at UNC speaking together to law students. And afterwards we went to lunch, and he said something that I thought was really interesting. And this is my prosecutor saying this to me, right? He goes, if you think about it, what you're doing now and how you're impacting others, you never would have gotten to what you're doing now if it had not been for the indictment. If it had not been for you going through all this. Of course, I made a joke. I was like, wait, if this makes you feel better, okay. But because you could have just been prodding along as an attorney, being halfway fulfilled and kind of being bored with life. Am I right? And I go, yeah, it's kind of right. He goes, yeah, now you're literally doing what you're meant to do. And you're inspiring people all over the world because of, you made these bad decisions and did some things, but look at you now. Like, look at what you're doing now. And the way you have taken this and you're going full force on trying to help others through your story is not a surprise to me, because this is essentially who you are. This is how you were as a kid. This is how you were as a lawyer. This is ultimately what got you into trouble because you were trying to be this way for your client. Like, this is just who you are. And it's not a surprise that you are so all in on now impacting others. It was so interesting coming from him, considering he was the one that instigated the whole shift in my life. And so I looked at him and I was like, okay, well then I should thank you.
Sometimes it's easier for other people to see that than when you're in your own skin and you're not necessarily tuned into, other people's observations are interesting.
He has a really interesting perspective on me because he spent years investigating me without me knowing, right? So like investigating me, reading my emails, like all of these things. He knows intricate personal things about me. He read all of my, 500,000 emails. And so he really has a sense of how I operate and how I respond and how I talk to people and how I engage with people. And so in that lens through which he sees me is a unique one, because yes, he indicted me, but he really believes in me. It's such an interesting dynamic between us. It's really fascinating.
Well, that's a cool story in and of itself. And I'm interested in, I know you and I talked offline about how you're working with a neuroscientist right now, and you're actually looking to create a tool for measuring resilience. And I find it fascinating that some people like you innately can take something incredibly disruptive and turn it into something amazing and impactful. But not everyone is innately built that way. Tell us a little bit about what you're working on right now with this tool. And I know it's going to be part of a book you're writing, so a little plug for your eventual book as well.
Thank you for that. The book is really a business prescriptive memoir. So there's a lot of kind of what happened in my story, and then it really goes through my RISE process and encapsulates stories and it really illustrates each of the steps of my process, of my framework, through various stories of the journey. Hopefully we'll be able to accumulate enough data before the book releases so I can include it. Otherwise that'll be book 2. If I'm being completely honest, Rebecca, I don't love the word resilience. I just feel like it's so overused. So I'm like, can I come up with a different word for resilience? So I'm not there yet. I haven't yet figured that out. But so for lack of a better term, for the current moment, we're calling it the resilience growth assessment. But the idea of how do we overcome challenges and hard moments and change and adversity, anxiety, uncertainty, like all of the things, right? So how we overcome is rooted in various factors. And so what are those factors and how do we respond when certain things come up? So the assessment, it's not very long. It's very straightforward, and it allows people to assess kind of what their limiting factors are, what they're good at and what they're not good at. It is completed. I have rolled it out and used it as like a pilot on a couple of clients. And we're kind of assessing the data right now to see what it's going to look like. But the neuroscientist that's helping me is a research neuroscientist. And so this is what she does, right? She works on assessments and gathering data and then analyzing the data that comes out of these assessments and then putting it together in some sort of coherent, recognizable report for each person. So that's where we're at right now. I think from a long-term perspective, what I hope we can use this for is that learning and development heads of, let's say big corporations, the idea of being able to monitor and measure how our teams grow in resilience, like from today till 6 months from today till a year, like what does that growth look like? And then knowing what their factors are, can we support our teams to buttress those factors even more so that resilience happens at a higher level? That's the ultimate idea.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
That makes a ton of sense. The company that I founded, the Empathy Collective, we're actually doing something similar, and we're in the process of piloting with clients as well.
Oh, cool.
We've developed a diagnostic tool called the Collective Empathy Continuum, and you can see where you sit as far as, are we closer to apathetic leadership or empathetic leadership, and how does that impact change resistance or change resilience? Mm-hmm. I'm with you on the resilience word. I haven't found another word for it yet. So I'm using it because that's the buzzword and that's what everyone talks about.
I know that is like, even as a speaker, right? Like on Speaker Bureau websites, resilience is one of the topics. So it's almost like you kind of have to be a resilient speaker. Yeah. Even though I'd like to say I'm a different type of speaker, but I really am a resilient speaker. So until somebody comes up with a better word, that's what we're using.
Absolutely. No, but interesting to see how your pilots turn out and what kind of data you're getting. And especially as you can start measuring on the long term to see how people are moving the needle as far as resilience is concerned. And I assume once people take the assessment, would you then go in and coach them or?
That's the idea. Yeah. That once we can identify where there is room for growth and aspects that could be worked on, idea being where can we do some coaching? Whether it's individually, groups, I think that is where this is headed.
That's fantastic. I think that's so incredibly needed right now. I mean, there seems to be constant disruption everywhere, all the time.
In many, many ways, right? We have market fluctuations and uncertainty for obvious reasons. We have talent uncertainty for also the very same reasons.
Yeah.
And so all of these are leading people to be in flux and to not understand, like, okay, so how do we react to this today and this tomorrow? I mean, it's almost like every day we're reacting to something. And so finding the ability to keep overcoming and, keep getting through and growing and evolving through these moments is, I think, where the challenge is for all of us.
Well, yeah. And getting to a place where you don't feel like you're just reacting all the time.
Yeah.
And you at least feel like you're prepared, somewhat prepared to better prepared to adapt rather than just panicking and reacting to the latest headlines, which I think a lot of people are doing right now, it's just fair enough.
Because I have all sorts of ideas on why our news cycles are being bombarded by new things daily, but we'll talk about that offline.
Yeah. I try not to get too political in this podcast, but yeah, I think the grand summary is business leaders are facing constant disruption and employees are reacting to whatever leaders are reacting to. And it's a very reactive climate at the moment and not a lot of
proactive
pivoting. Yeah. Proactive pivoting and adjusting and long-term thinking. It's all very short-term thinking right now.
Yeah. And instead of being intentional and thoughtful and aware, of the decisions that we're making and why we're making them. It's more like off the cuff, reactive. Like we got to do this today. We got to do this tomorrow. And that does not lead for organizational growth. It doesn't lead for building community and culture and connection as well. So everyone's firing at like 500 levels versus like collaborating together and then figuring out a solution. I think you and I both are aligned on this. When we have empathetic leadership, it leads to better resiliency and it leads to better decision making. All the things.
Well, I certainly wish you continued success with the writing of your book. You'll have to keep me posted on the published date so I can be sure to share with my network.
Well, it's Q1 2026. We're sort of like in that phase of most of the content is there, but we're reorganizing it all. Yeah. And then we have to like rewrite a lot of it to match the reorganization and the transition. So I feel like the last 10% is the hardest. I'm probably still about last 25% is where I'm at still. 3 weeks off in India and got a break before I get it.
Cool. Well, I was wondering, actually, speaking of India and your cultural roots, I was hoping you would treat my listeners to a little singing in Hindi to kind of close out our episode today.
Yeah, happy to. Part of the story of what happened in my case was one specific night on Christmas Eve in 2007. We were having a family reunion, and on that specific night at 8:00, I was in my kids' bedroom. At the time, they were 2 and 3, and I was in their bedroom making them sleep. And as I was making them sleep, so Maya's in her crib, and Kyler's over here in his toddler bed, and I'm sitting on the glider, right? We all had gliders, and, gliding along. It's 2007, so I actually have a BlackBerry. So I'm looking down at my BlackBerry, and in comes an email. The story is a long story related to my case, but at that exact moment, I was singing to my children. So I used to sing to my children the same lullaby that my parents used to sing to me every single night. And to be honest, like even now, and I'll sing this for you, I'll sing a few lines for you, but even now when I hear the song, when I sing the song, it's so nostalgic for me because I think of my parents and I can remember my mom, like I'm 53. And even now, like if I lay my head into my mom's lap, she'll start like running her fingers through my hair and singing the song to me if it's nighttime. So it's just part of I can't even describe what it is. And so if any of your listeners are Desi, if they're Indian, they probably will recognize this. It's from an old movie. तू भी सो जा सो गई रंग भरी शाम आजकल निडर गया दिन हुआ तमाम. Essentially what the words mean is today and tomorrow are just another day. Today is now over. Go to sleep. Tomorrow is another day to rise, right? It's so incredible to me that this song was sung to me my entire life. Then I sang this to my children their entire life. And it's essentially a song about how every single day we have a chance when we go to sleep to remember that tomorrow morning is another day to get up and rise, which is exactly what I talk about because we all have the ability to rise. Of course, mine is the rise process and it's reframe, identify, surrender, evolve. But however we apply the rise process in our lives, every day the sun rises. And I believe we all have the opportunity to do that, no matter what.
That gave me chills. Not just the singing, but that whole story. It's all just coming together. Your purpose.
It really is.
You really are living your purpose in such a beautiful way, Rashmi. I mean, thank you for being here, for doing what you do, for having this conversation with me. I'm really excited to share this episode because I know you will inspire more people through this conversation.
I'm so grateful, Rebecca, that you invited me. And I really loved our conversation. Every time I do and I'm able to share my message, whether it's from stage or on a podcast, I always tell people like I heal just a little bit more in the process. And sometimes what comes out of my mouth and what I happen to say, it's not like I plan it. it's just, I dig deeper and my soul is speaking. And so thank you for giving me the chance and the opportunity.
Well, thank you for speaking your soul with me today. And I appreciate the conversation and wish you all the best and all of the adventures ahead, because tomorrow is another day after all.
Exactly.
If you enjoyed this podcast and would like to hear more, please subscribe wherever you like to listen to podcasts. And if you would like to learn more about the Empathy Collective, check out our website, theempathycollective.com. Life is too short. Let's take care of each other at work so that together we can make this world a better place.